Sarah gripped the armrests of her grandfather's favorite porch chair, her knuckles turning white. The faded leather creaked beneath her as she stared down the pristine lawns and manicured hedges of her HOA community. A crisp white envelope sat on the weathered wood table beside her, the official HOA seal emblazoned across the front. Her heart raced. They couldn't be serious. Not about this. The sound of the front door slamming shut jolted her out of her thoughts. Her husband, Michael, hurried down the porch steps, his face flushed with anger. "Can you believe this?" he shouted, waving the letter in the air. "They're threatening to fine us if we don't remove that chair by the end of the week." Sarah bit her lip, fighting back tears. But it was Grandpa's. "I can't just get rid of it." Michael moved to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I know, honey. I know how much that chair means to you." His voice softened. "But you know how the HOA is. They'll fine us into oblivion if we don't comply." Sarah shook her head stubbornly. "I don't care. I'm not getting rid of it. It's the last thing I have left of him." Michael sighed heavily. "Sarah, please, think about this. We can't afford another HOA fine right now. We're already struggling as it is." The sound of a car pulling into the driveway interrupted their conversation. Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins, stepped out, her mouth set in a tight line. Well, she said, marching up the porch steps. "I see you've received the letter." Sarah tensed, bracing herself for the onslaught. "This is simply unacceptable." Mrs. Wilkins continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "That chair is an eyesore, and it's bringing down the property values of the entire neighborhood. You have to get rid of it." "It's not an eyesore," Sarah shot back, her voice trembling. "It's a reminder of my grandfather. I'm not removing it, no matter what you or the HOA says." Mrs. Wilkins scoffed. "Well, don't say I didn't warn you. If you refuse to comply, the HOA will have no choice but to issue the fine. And you know how they are about delinquent payments." With that, she turned on her heel and strode back to her car, leaving Sarah and Michael in a stunned silence. "What are we going to do?" Sarah whispered, her eyes pleading with her husband. Michael wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "I don't know, honey. I just don't know." The next few days were a whirlwind of tense negotiations and heated arguments with the HOA board. Sarah and Michael pleaded their case, explaining the sentimental value of the chair and the role it played in their family's history. But the HOA remained steadfast in their demands. "The rules are the rules," the HOA president, Mrs. Pendleton, told them sternly during a heated meeting. "That chair is an unsightly blemish on an otherwise pristine community. You have until the end of the week to remove it, or we'll have no choice but to issue the fine." Sarah's heart sank. She knew they couldn't afford another HOA fine, but the thought of losing the chair was too much to bear. It was the last piece of her grandfather she had left, a tangible connection to the man who had watched over her during her childhood. As the meeting adjourned, Sarah and Michael walked home in silence, the weight of their decision heavy on their shoulders. "Maybe we could try to compromise," Michael suggested tentatively. "See if they'd let us keep it, but painted a different color or something." Sarah shook her head. "I doubt they'd go for that. They're dead set on getting rid of it." They reached their front porch, and Sarah's eyes immediately fell on the chair, its faded leather and worn armrests, a bittersweet reminder of her grandfather's comforting presence. "I can't do it, Michael," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I can't just get rid of it. It's all I have left of him." Michael pulled her into a hug, offering the only comfort he could. "I know, honey. I know." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the pristine lawns, Sarah made a decision. She wouldn't let the HOA take this away from her, no matter what. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a renewed sense of determination. She had spent a restless night weighing her options, and she knew what she had to do. After a hurried breakfast, she set out, ignoring Michael's concerned pleas to reconsider. She made her way to the local hardware store, her mind racing with a plan. Inside, she gathered a can of paint, a sturdy can of varnish, and a set of brushes. The clerk eyed her curiously, but Sarah simply smiled and paid for her purchases, her hands shaking with nervous energy. Back home, she set to work, carefully sanding down the chair and wiping away the years of grime. As she painted, she felt a connection to her grandfather, the memories of him sitting in this very spot flooding her mind. When the paint had dried, she applied a thick coat of varnish, determined to preserve the chair's integrity. By the time she was finished, the chair gleamed, its once faded leather now a rich, vibrant hue. Sarah stepped back, admiring her handiwork. It was as if her grandfather's spirit had been restored to the chair, a tangible piece of her past that she refused to let go. Just as she was about to bring the chair back to its rightful place on the porch, she heard the familiar rumble of Mrs. Wilkins' car pulling into the driveway. Steeling herself for another confrontation, she stepped outside, ready to defend her decision. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" Mrs. Wilkins exclaimed, her eyes widening at the sight of the freshly restored chair. "I'm keeping my grandfather's chair," Sarah said, her voice steady and resolute. "It means the world to me, and I won't let the HOA take it away." Mrs. Wilkins opened her mouth to protest, but Sarah held up a hand, silencing her. "If the HOA wants to fine me, then so be it. I'm willing to fight this to the bitter end." As the words left her lips, Sarah knew there was no turning back. She had drawn a line in the sand, and she was ready to defend her family's legacy, no matter the cost. The confrontation with Mrs. Wilkins had been a tense one, but Sarah stood her ground, refusing to back down. Within days, the HOA board was notified of her defiance, and the threats of fines and legal action began to pour in. Michael tried to reason with her, pleading for her to reconsider, but Sarah remained steadfast. This chair was the last tangible connection she had to her beloved grandfather, and she would not let it be taken from her. As the deadline approached, the pressure mounted. Neighbors began to whisper and stare, their disapproving glances only fueling Sarah's determination. The HOA president, Mrs. Pendleton, even made a personal visit, her face twisted in a scowl. "This is your last chance, Mrs. Whitaker," she spat. "Remove that chair, or we'll have no choice but to take legal action." Sarah looked her straight in the eye, unwavering. "I'm not going anywhere, Mrs. Pendleton. This chair stays, no matter what you or the HOA says." With a huff, the HOA president stormed off, her heels clicking angrily against the pavement. Sarah watched her go, her heart racing, but her resolve unshaken. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah and Michael sat together on the porch, the refurbished chair a silent witness to their turmoil. The silence between them was heavy, the weight of their decision palpable. "Are you sure about this, Sarah?" Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah reached out and squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "I have to be, Michael. I can't let them take this away from me, not after everything else I've lost." Michael sighed and pulled her close, offering the only comfort he could. They sat there, lost in their thoughts, as the shadows of the night crept in, the future uncertain, but their resolve unbreakable. The following week was a whirlwind of legal threats and heated confrontations. The HOA board remained steadfast in their demands, issuing increasingly severe warnings and ultimatums. But Sarah refused to budge, her determination only growing stronger with each passing day. One afternoon, as Sarah was tending to her garden, she heard the familiar sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Straightening up, she watched as Mrs. Pendleton, the HOA president, stormed towards her, her face twisted in a furious scowl. "This is your last warning, Mrs. Whitaker," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "Remove that chair, or we'll have no choice but to take you to court." Sarah felt a surge of defiance rise within her. "I've already made my decision, Mrs. Pendleton. That chair stays, no matter what you or the HOA does." The HOA president's eyes narrowed. Then so be it. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. With that, she turned on her heel and stalked back to her car, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. As the days passed, the legal threats continued to mount. Sarah and Michael pored over documents, seeking advice from lawyers and community advocates. But the HOA was relentless, determined to enforce their rules at all costs. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. Sarah and Michael sat in the courtroom, their hearts racing, as the judge listened to both sides of the argument. The HOA presented their case, citing the rules and regulations, while Sarah and Michael pleaded their case, sharing the deep sentimental value of the chair. In the end, the judge deliberated for what felt like an eternity. When he finally delivered his verdict, the tension in the room was palpable. After careful consideration, the judge began, "I rule in favor of the Whittakers. The chair will remain on their porch, and the HOA is prohibited from issuing any fines or taking further legal action." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, tears streaming down her face. She had fought for her grandfather's legacy, and she had won. As she and Michael left the courthouse, hand in hand, Sarah knew that this battle had been about more than just a chair. It was about standing up to injustice, about preserving the memories and traditions that make a house a home. And in the end, she had emerged victorious, a testament to the power of determination and the enduring bond of family. In the wake of the court victory, Sarah and Michael's neighborhood was abuzz with whispers and speculation. Some of their neighbors applauded their defiance, while others muttered under their breath, unable to understand the significance of the cherished chair. Mrs. Wilkins, in particular, was livid. She had been a vocal opponent of the Whittakers from the beginning, and she made no secret of her disdain for their refusal to comply with the HOA's demands. "It's an outrage," she ranted to anyone who would listen. "That chair is an eyesore, and it's bringing down the property values of the entire neighborhood. The Whittakers should be ashamed of themselves for causing such a ruckus." But Sarah refused to be cowed by the backlash. She had fought for something that mattered to her, and she had emerged victorious. As she sat in her grandfather's chair, watching the sunset, she felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over her. "It was worth it, Michael," she said, leaning against her husband's shoulder. "I know Grandpa would be proud of me for standing up for what's important." Michael wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "I know, honey. I'm proud of you too." In the days that followed, the Whittakers found themselves the center of attention in their community. Some neighbors, inspired by their courage, even began to question the HOA's strict enforcement of the rules. Others, however, remained steadfast in their support of the HOA, unwilling to see beyond the letter of the law. But Sarah didn't care. She had her grandfather's chair, and that was all that mattered. It was a symbol of her family's history, a tangible reminder of the love and support she had always felt in her childhood home. As the summer sun began to fade, casting a warm glow over the Whittakers' porch, Sarah knew that this chair would always be a part of her life. It was a testament to the power of perseverance, and a reminder that sometimes the most important things in life are worth fighting for. In the weeks that followed the court victory, the Whittakers' porch chair became a symbol of resistance and community unity within their neighborhood. Word of a defiance against the HOA had spread, and many of their neighbors began to rally behind them. Some residents, inspired by the Whittakers' courage, started to question the HOA's rigid enforcement of the rules, wondering if there might be room for more flexibility and understanding. They organized community meetings, where people could share their concerns and discuss potential solutions that balanced the needs of the HOA with the desires of individual homeowners. Sarah and Michael, in turn, became pillars of this growing movement. They hosted gatherings on their porch, inviting neighbors to come and share their stories, their laughter and conversations echoing across the once stoic community. The once faded chair, now gleaming with a fresh coat of varnish, became a symbol of unity and a reminder that sometimes standing up for what you believe in can make all the difference. As the seasons changed and the years passed, the Whittaker's porch chair remained a steadfast presence, a testament to the power of perseverance and the enduring bonds of family. Grandchildren would come to sit in its familiar embrace, listening with rapt attention as Sarah and Michael shared tales of their hard-won battle against the HOA. And whenever Sarah looked at the chair, she felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude, knowing that she had honored her grandfather's memory in the most meaningful way possible. It was more than just a piece of furniture. It was a symbol of her family's resilience, a reminder that sometimes the most important battles are the ones fought for the things we hold most dear. In the end, the Whittaker's story had become a beacon of hope for their community, inspiring others to stand up for their rights and fight against the tyranny of overbearing homeowners associations. And as Sarah and Michael sat together on the porch, watching the world go by, they knew that their victory had been about more than just a chair. It had been about preserving the soul of their neighborhood and the memories that made it a true home. Years had passed since the Whittakers' landmark victory against the HOA, and the reverberations of their story continued to be felt throughout the community. Sarah and Michael's porch chair had become a symbol of resistance, a rallying point for homeowners who had grown weary of the HOA's heavy-handed tactics. Whenever a new resident moved in, they were greeted by the sight of the refurbished chair, a silent reminder of the power of persistence and the importance of standing up for one's beliefs. The Whittakers themselves had become local celebrities of sorts, their story inspiring others to stand up to their own HOA battles. They hosted regular gatherings on their porch, where neighbors would come to share their own struggles and seek advice. "If the Whittakers could do it, then so can we," became a common refrain among the community. And slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Homeowners banded together, pushing for changes to the HOA's bylaws and demanding more transparency in their decision-making processes. The once rigid rules began to soften, as the board recognized the need for a more nuanced, empathetic approach to community management. The porch chair, meanwhile, remained a constant presence, its weathered frame a testament to the passage of time and the enduring power of family. Sarah would often sit in it, gazing out at the neighborhood she loved, a wistful smile on her face. "Grandpa would be so proud," she would whisper to herself, her fingers tracing the familiar contours of the chair's armrests. And as the sun set over the community, casting a warm glow across the Whittakers' porch, it was as if the very spirit of her grandfather was there, watching over them all.